This is the Classic Auto Mall Show. Broadcast from the studios inside the Classic Auto Mall in Morgantown, Pennsylvania. Just 1 hour west of Philadelphia at Pennsylvania Turnpike exit 298. Featuring nearly 1,000 classic, vintage, and barn-find vehicles for sale under one climate-controlled roof. Now, here's your host, Classic Auto Mall president and the man with all the toys, Stewart Howden.
And welcome, show number 192. Golly, here we go.
Here we go.
Closing in on 200.
200. Closing in on 300, really, but
yeah,
closer to 200.
Yesterday, we went over 13,000 subscribers. Today, we're at 13. Right before we came on the air, 13,750 subscribers. 750 games
on YouTube.
Yesterday on YouTube.
Amazing.
Wow. So, how many cars in inventory? You'll go first, JR. And there's a Porsche reference to this number.
Oh, my.
Oh, good.
Oh, that's pretty easy.
Oh, 944.
No.
I'm going to go, well, it could be any, excuse me, it's either 935 or 928. I'm going to go 935.
928 would have been your right choice. That's how many cars we have in inventory right now, 928. So we're slacking. We're slacking a little bit. We need to get more inventory in. And let's get to our guest, though, before we waste all of our time here. Good morning. Chris Dyson is joining us via Zoom. How are you this morning, Chris?
I'm doing great. It's a sunny day finally up here in New York, so I'm happy.
Us too. You know, I think we get the tail end, or you get the tail end of our weather or whatever down here in Pennsylvania. But we have had misery. It has just been raining forever. Thank God it went. My daughter lives in Colorado Springs, and it was blizzard yesterday. Goodness gracious. Do you wonder that people that live in the Northeast don't get to train as much for race car driving because of the inclement weather? They have to go south or west, right?
Well, it seems like nowadays it's hard to tell with the weather. Obviously, sprint car country, everyone's had a later than expected start. Certainly Ohio and Pennsylvania have been hit pretty hard.
Sure.
I think from a sort of New England Northeast standpoint, it's, road racing, we're racing rain or shine.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's been damp. I mean, I just got back from California, and both weekends out there were kind of in the 50s.
Yeah, I mean,
rain, and that's unusual.
Yeah, when you're doing these events that are so, held by the weather. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a race or the qualifying or anything, and you're seeing that a lot more weather incidents in racing, including Formula One. We were, watching and talking the other day about how a lot of races have rain, and of course that changes the dynamic completely.
Well, I think it's a feature, not a bug of road racing to have kind of mixed conditions.
Sure.
And I think certainly as a sort of great equalizer, I think rain brings a lot of variables to the table that I think make it exciting. I think as long as the visibility is okay and you're not hydroplaning, it's just fine as a driver too.
Right. Well, it's like, controlling the car, whether it's drifting or whatever you want to call it, or any type of that, where they're actually, it's slick on purpose, but like you said, it's the mist and the fog and the visibility that's the issue. I mean, you see some of these drivers driving down, second place and beyond. It's scary.
Yeah. I mean, I've done some races in the wet, and, the Petit Le Mans in 2009 was probably the most extreme example, but you're in monsoon conditions and you kind of look back and you say, wow, we made it through that day.
Sure, right.
But it's, the workers and everybody else, they got to really work hard in the wet. So, and fans prefer the sun. There's no coincidence why we're racing in most places when it's supposed to be nice times of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like when last weekend, pretty good weekend last weekend down over at WeatherTech for you at Laguna Seca, right?
Yeah, it was fantastic. I mean, we had a great West Coast run. We'd been in Sonoma the week prior, and then we motored on over to Monterey, and both tracks have been really good to the team over the years. And we rolled off the truck, and both cases we were on those tracks again since repavings. And I have to say, like, they've made great tracks even better.
Really,
with the fresh pavement. It's still the same great layouts, but just the performance went up and the speeds and the commitment levels. And I'm just, first of all, I'm personally just delighted to be back in the car after kind of a 6-week layoff from injury. And we were able to come out of it with a win and some fastest laps. And that would, from a personal standpoint, was really satisfying for me and the team.
Yeah, second place for the team as well too. You got first and second, right, with a kid named Andretti, right? He's that's kind of cool.
Adam came in and he'd had an accident the week before, and Claudio Burton wants to keep him in the title chase, and we happened to have our second car out there, and we were able to work out a deal and got Adam there, and he did a hell of a job.
Yeah, you had a hell of a battle with Menard too, did you? That looked like it was fun, right?
Yeah, we've been having some great races over the last couple seasons, and he was really, I think, pretty strong considering it was his first time racing out at Laguna,
right?
And we had an all race battle at Sonoma, and it's just, I think when we get that kind of battle going on up front, you throw Adam in there, Matt Brabham, Tommy Dreese, Boris Said shows up,
right.
Brent Cruz. You've got some guys driving some high horsepower cars, and everybody wants to win.
Sure. Is Laguna Seca, is the corkscrew as intimidating as it looks, or are you kind of used to it after all the years of driving it?
I think the biggest trick with the corkscrew is the braking zone.
Right.
A lot of people get caught up in kind of the roller coaster blind turning element, but the hardest trick about that thing is getting it slowed down at the right speed, and the ground is shifting. You brake into an uphill, and then it levels out, and then there's a couple swales in the ground.
Right.
And if you don't have your rake right, or you got your brake bias a little bit wrong, or God forbid you leave it a little bit late, it becomes a lot more exciting than it should be.
Sure.
And traction down the hill is a thing that I think has changed a little bit. For anybody who's driven it on a simulator or video game in person, as the car starts to go as weightless and then resets on the ground, the biggest thing is kind of judging how hard you can go to power,
right.
And really getting a fast line into the next left is probably the most important thing.
I rode with one of the instructors at PIR Phoenix at the Bondurant School one time, and we came over this one rise in an immediately a right corner, and you thought, there's no way they have enough traction. They're completely unsprung, and there's no way that they're going to be able to turn. And somehow it hooks up at the last minute. And of course, they knew that. Of course, they'd driven the track a gazillion times, right? But pretty fearful feeling, especially as a passenger.
Yeah, I would imagine, especially if you hadn't seen the track before.
Right.
It's never, look, I mean, Laguna's never a dull moment. It's one of those jewels of American racing. The friends of Laguna Seca have taken it over, and
Sure.
they're going to put, a lot of resources into it. But, you go to a new racetrack and you're getting your sea legs under you. It can be intimidating, but you just start chipping away at it, and you don't take big bites, and it's easier said than done. I get that.
Sure.
But it never loses its charm or excitement.
Oh, I imagine not. And is the Mustang you're running this year pretty manageable to drive? Is it doing everything it's supposed to do?
On most days, yeah. It's been really. I'd say since about a couple races into last year, we really found some performance with the car. We ran it off and on in 2023, and ultimately had to kind of park it to make some whole scale upgrades, and we rolled it out last year, and it's been fast everywhere.
Right.
So, I just can't wait to get back in it now.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess that's a good sign.
Well, you got Lime Rock in Mid-Ohio coming up, right? Here not in the near distant future, right?
Yes. Lime Rock's obviously, we consider it probably one of our most important, if not the most important race of the year, because it's home.
Yeah.
We get a lot of friends and family out there, and it kind of becomes almost like the Indy 500 to the family and the team. And we love racing out there. It's super fast. I think the Trans Am cars put on an amazing show. We cover ground quickly.
Yeah.
And then Mid-Ohio, same deal. Just again, classic American venues for a truly incredible series. And I'm just grateful. I mean, we're going on 7-8 seasons of this, and it hasn't gotten old. I'm loving every minute of it.
Team owner or driver? Would you have a preference to what you want to do? Is it tough being both? Is it? Do you enjoy it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fortunately or not. I don't know a lot of different because I grew up in it with the team being the family's team, so.
Right.
We've been owner operators a lot longer than I've just been a driver. And, I think it's from my standpoint, it's just the familiarity with it all being the same thing.
Right.
I've certainly gone out and driven for other people and done sort of hired work with other teams, and I've always enjoyed it. I've always felt like I've brought something back to my own team, but it always feels like you're leaving home. Right. And it's nice to come home. In our case, we've got a great group of guys, and I know more than anything else that my safety is going to be sacrosanct to those guys.
Sure.
And that's important.
Sure. We had your dad on back in February and just talking about that team mentality. How great is it to race with your dad? I mean, that's so cool. That's so far from most people's wheelhouse. Is not even funny, but you got to do it many times. Yeah.
I mean, I'm grateful for the fact that my dad, stuck around and kept punching as long as he did, because it gave us that opportunity. At the time when I was coming into pro racing, I was considered pretty much a young guy, even though I was like 23.
Right.
And Dad at that point was in his kind of, I guess it would have been his mid 50s, but still keeping fit, still doing, a handful of events a year at a very competitive level. And we had a blast with it. I think it was, I would say passing of the torch, but it was really, I think, quite special to do a couple of the events we did. I mean, I think even one of the races that he won and I finished second, I mean, that was memorable. And doing 24-hour race together, 12 hours of Sebring, his last occasions of doing those events, it was pretty special for me.
Sure. And he I mean, gosh, you had to just be like a sponge being around him. I bet everything he said you wanted to take in, and because of all the experience that he had. I mean, my goodness, that's just not many people get that luxury, right?
Well, it's kind of funny, right? Because like with your parents, right? My dad was quite brilliant about I think he makes a lot of intuitive sense with what he says.
Right.
And I think anybody who ever spends time with him, he says things sometimes with a logic and a directness that's really helpful. I think if you're his son, you get to a point where you're probably 13 or 14 and you might push back on that for 5 or maybe 10 or 15 years.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you're still absorbing. Right. And I think about all the times I get in a car. I mean, I'm still doing things in road cars that he taught me when I was 13, 14 years old.
Sure.
And I think a lot of that certainly carried over into the racing. It's interesting though. He's one of those drivers. My dad's one of those drivers. He's a field driver. He can tell you kind of directionally what to do.
Right.
He can't necessarily explain why he's doing something.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
He's like a naturally gifted driver.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes you'd ask him like specifically, and he would say, well, I don't know. You just do it that way.
Right.
And so there was a certain amount of go out and figure it out for yourself.
Sure.
But the kind of background habits.
Sure.
He was extremely helpful.
Well, in hindsight's 20/20 on parental advice, right? We all hear it and go, "Oh, whatever, Dad," and then you realize you put it to practical use, right? But it's like a guitar player who doesn't read music. I mean, it's hard to. Right. And with all the computers today, you talk about a feel for the car. I mean, it's got to be equally as important a good driver who can convey to the team what's right and wrong with the car and where it's good and where it's not so good.
Great point. We could probably spend the entire podcast talking about just that element of driving, because, it is so important to be able to connect the quantifiable with the intangible in racing. And I think James Weaver used to say, that you have a better chance of winning an argument with your wife than with a stopwatch or with a data screen. And he was so right about that. But I think being able to connect the feel and kind of the tactile and frankly from an engineering standpoint, to be able to understand that and then integrate that relationship into kind of the numbers and the science, and of remembering, of course, that there is a human being out there, and that the drivers are not the simulated driver. It's a person who maybe likes things a certain way. And it's kind of fine tuning around those elements, but also hoping you've got the driver who's willing to look at the facts. And that's why this sport is so brutal, because there's no hiding. Right. And you've got to be completely open-minded about what you don't know and where you could get better. And I think that, the difference between a natural driver is that, and a kind of technical driver is that the technical driver kind of knows how to bail themselves out of trouble, whereas a natural driver will sometimes drive around those issues, probably at a higher level than they should be able to. And I think in some cases that maybe masks deficiencies that you may have in the setup. And I think there's a blend. And again, we could talk about it a lot, but I think that again, when you get into sports car situations where you've got multiple drivers, engineers have a pretty broad mission.
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, you got to set up the car for 3 different drivers, but it's all got to be the same, right? So, I mean, do you all want to be the same height and the same weight, or? I mean,
no, I guess I want to be smaller. And then I want to be 6'2" when I'm out of the car, but I want to be 5'7" when I'm in it.
Exactly.
Believe me, I would love to carry some of the weight that these younger, sort of shorter guys get to.
Sure.
And I can't say I've ever been in a situation where I've had a lot of drivers who are my size.
Right.
But so I think generally speaking, if the car is right from a setup standpoint, it probably doesn't matter what size you are.
Right.
Everyone will get to the limit. And the key is with kind of, I think certainly with endurance racing and multiple drivers, it's to figure out how you're going to do the best average time.
Right.
Because that's actually what wins those kind of races.
Yeah, not generally being the fastest every lap is what's going to do it, right? I mean, you've got to know when to ease up a little bit, right? Where the car won't be able to take the whole 24 hours or 12 hours.
Yeah, nowadays it's amazing how much punishment the cars take, and I think it's different, I guess, in the Trans Am because in Trans Am we're overpowered. Right. Certainly for the car and the drivetrain, and there still is that element of managing the car and not burning your stuff down, whether it's the brakes or the tires or even the gearbox. Right. But in modern endurance racing, the cars are so kind of integrated and relatively understressed that you're driving flat out pretty much the whole way. So I think that's one of the things that's very impressive now about modern the endurance races is that it's basically flat out driving for a very long time. Right. And, I mean, and yep.
Formula One kind of the same too. I mean, those cars. It's amazing how they can predict the predictability of the lap times of these guys. They'll tell them to slow down, and they'll slow down a second. I don't know how you slow down 1 second a lap. How do you know? How do you know where you are and where you are in relation to the previous lap or whatever you're running? If you're running 130 and you need to really want to run a 131 or something.
Well, I think one of the benefits that we have now that we didn't always have is you've got predictive kind of lap timers on the car that can effectively tell you what target lap you're running. They basically will take the GPS, they'll calculate that against time when you've passed the last, the beacon or wherever your start finish is, and that's how you can kind of moderate. But I think really more than anything else, it's figuring out where that second is coming from. Is it coming from being easier on the brakes? Is it coming from being less aggressive on the tires? Is it coming from a lower engine power map? Because that lends itself to how you drive it. Right. So, we're all happy to go slower if we're allowed to. Right. But in Formula One, it's interesting what you said about the F1 thing is that the tires are built to degrade as part of the show. So, if you talk to a lot of the guys who are driving there now, who were around during the tire war days of the late 2000s, early 2010s, it's a different sport now than it used to be. It's a lot more like endurance and sports car driving now because they have to manage the tire wear.
I mean, and everybody says, well, simulators will do this and they'll do that, but no simulator. I mean, can they simulate tire degradation in these? I'm sure in the high dollar ones they can that these guys are using or you're using as well. But still, there's no real real trade-off for. I mean, driving on the track is a whole different set of skills versus driving in your basement.
Yes, it is. I mean, certainly the physical side of it is a lot different unless you've got a full motion simulator that's cranked up with temperatures of 130 140 degrees, and you're probably not going to simulate the physical exertion on your body, but the tire models that they're putting into these simulators, even just the commercial ones, are surprisingly good. Right. I think that everybody would probably tell you that that's probably the biggest variable between real and simulated. The tires. But it's a pretty high percentage of accuracy.
Sure. Well, and you want to know the track, and what better way to learn a track, right, than to drive it 1,000 or however many times you would drive it in the simulation mode, just to kind of get a feel for it. I mean, do people still walk the track? Is that a thing anymore, or does that even not happen anymore?
I think so. I mean, I think they do. It comes down to how you learn. I think more than anything else. I mean, some people need the visual external clues, and some people can use the screen to kind of basically draw that mental picture. A lot of what we do is visualization, and I think whether you need to be outside to actually walk in the track or you can do it on a sim, I think it just comes down to how your brain works.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess different strokes for different folks. I mean, different things work for different people, and that's why, not everybody's obviously the same. Do you? What's the power plant for your Mustang this year in Trans Am? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, it's a pretty impressive FR9 based engine. So it's essentially what they've been racing in NASCAR for a long time.
Right.
These were the engines that in their peak were making upwards of 950 to 1,000 horsepower.
Wow.
And we're rev restricted. So they only make somewhere between 850 and 900 for us on the road
That seems
courses.
a little disappointing.
Yeah. But I've got Mike Lancy builds my engines. Mike was in NASCAR for a long time and is an absolutely brilliant, not only just brilliant engine builder, but tremendous at kind of developing and taking feedback and he's a big reason for our success.
Sure.
as a team.
And it's good that there's crossover with these engines because obviously the more they make, the less costly they become. You hope anyway. That's in theory, right?
Well, yeah, and I think the benefit is that by drawing from kind of the NASCAR DNA is that you have a lot of inventory still available.
Sure, right.
Look, it's the last bastion of the high horsepower V8 in this country.
Yeah.
In fairness, NASCAR, one of the biggest targets for cost reduction was to get the engine power and performance down. And you can say what you will about what that's done for the on-track spectacle, but it's definitely a different style of driving.
Yeah.
And having 850 is a lot different than having 600.
Sure. Night and day difference, right? Yeah. It's funny. Could Formula One have a NASCAR style finish every once in a while? About 20 of them, all 15 of them coming right together within seconds of each other, and we never see that in F1.
Yeah, I will say F1's so much closer now than it ever used to be.
Right.
And I think, like you said, you brought up the DRS. There's guaranteed passing because of it now,
right.
Which, if you want anybody who tune into those early 2000s races, everyone loved the V10s and I'm one of them. But, if you go back and look at those races, they were very often just snooze fests.
Right.
It was the start and then that was it.
Yeah. As a sponsor, you're almost better off to be sponsoring the third or fourth place car than you are the first place car because he was gone. They don't even show him hardly.
I think they're doing a good job. I have to say, since Liberty bought F1, the quality of the broadcasting and frankly, the storytelling and
right.
the development of the personalities. To get to that stuff back in like the 90s or 2000s, you had to be an enthusiast.
Yeah, you really had to want to do it. Yeah.
That's right.
It wasn't out there. And it's nice to see COTA and Vegas and Miami with the F1 stuff. And of course, just racing in general becoming more popular is good for all racing, right? A rising tide lifts all race cars.
100%. And where I think it pays off is that there's, you're going into malls, you're walking into malls in middle America, and you're going into clothing stores that are, they're basically licensed sellers of F1 branded
right.
teamwear. And that just shows you like the broadening of the knowledge of racing that I think has gone on in the last, 10 years and was probably accelerated through COVID.
Right.
Is that it used to just be in America, racing was NASCAR.
Right.
And I mean that in the last 20 years. Prior to that, when I grew up as a kid, IndyCar was kind of the king, and NASCAR and sports cars, it was sort of like the sort of triangle there.
Right.
And now, people in America are just as much Formula One fans as NASCAR. It's growing more and more, and I think that's gratifying because what that means is that kind of shoulder interest in racing, the ability to maybe go see a road race,
right.
That interest has definitely been expanding, and we're seeing more families, younger families with their kids, and that's really the root of the future interest. And that's been probably my favorite thing about the last few years.
Yeah, that's the same with our business. Seeing the younger kids getting involved in classic cars and having an interest in that is, huge, because otherwise, we're going to shrink to nothing and there'll be nobody doing anything, and we don't want that. What are your thoughts on these country club racetracks? Good, bad, different, doesn't matter. What's your thoughts?
Well, I think it's good for the enthusiast market. I think it's great for people that buy high performance cars to be able to have places to go out and drive them quickly.
Right.
My experience with a lot of the tracks and the people who are there is that they love racing and they love their cars, and there's a real camaraderie. There's a good core of interest. I think it's keeping a lot of good people in the sport employed and a lot of businesses around the sport, vibrant to have these outlets.
Sure.
And, I guess if you looked at it and you said, okay, like what's losing because of the country clubs? I don't know if the people that are necessarily the club members would be the same folks that would go racing.
Right.
So I think in some respects, it's kind of broadened the funnel for people that go to racetracks.
Sure.
And I'm never going to say no to that.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, everything that and the other thing that we talk about often here, and when talking to drivers and team owners, is the kind of the lack of, maybe it's not as bad as we think, of the karting program like they have in Europe, where they bring these kids on at an early age and get them into racing when they're in their 8, 9, 10 years old. Do we have that now, or are we still lagging behind Europe when it comes to that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm of the mind that, America has tremendously talented young drivers. They just don't happen to be necessarily all competing in go-karts.
Right.
But if you go to a short track on any given Friday or Saturday night, and you look around at the kids who are out there wheeling micros or midgets or quarter midgets, or, even in some cases like some street stocks, you're going to see a lot of talent. And I think that a lot of people don't necessarily realize that, like, that circle track, that dirt driver has got arguably better feel for grip conditions than anybody who's in a go-kart. Sure. But, certainly worldwide, there's a globally accepted standard of karting and the sort of ladder for that. But, if you talk to a lot of people, they'll sit there and say, it's become cost prohibitive.
Right.
So it's created some barricades to people getting into the sport who used to view karting as a step up. And I don't know. I mean, look, I'm a big proponent of saying that, if you put anybody that drives in sort of the USAC levels into road racing conditions, they'd be incredible.
Right.
You only have to look at some of the guys that have come through recently to prove that out. I mean, look at how good Kyle Larson is, and look how good Brent Cruz is, and look how good Chris Bell is, and a lot of these guys that are, they lived on dirt when they were younger, and they've come up, and even Cody Swanson did some guest appearances in some vintage stuff, and he was fast. Right. They all know how to drive. Well, and the dirt teaches you a lot more than anything else.
And a lot of drivers, there's a lot of great drivers out there, no different than there's a great singer that's a waitress at Cracker Barrel. There's a lot of great drivers that may never get a chance to show their skills to anybody. They're just going to do their own thing in Dubuque, Iowa, or wherever they live, and it'll never get recognized, or they don't have the wherewithal to make it recognizable.
No, you're so right. I mean, I think Fangio was asked years ago, like, who's the best driver in the world? And he said, I don't know. I think it could be a taxi driver in Rome. But you're right. I mean, there's people out there, and sometimes you see these reminders of the talent that exists, and we're a land of a lot of people. There's a lot of gifted people out there. And the good news about nowadays is that there's ways to get recognized. Right. Through new channels of information, social media. It used to just be word of mouth, and there were gatekeepers around that as far as getting. I think talent is still rising. Right. You're seeing more talent, and that's why I think you're seeing the level come up at younger ages now.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch the younger kids, or the discipline that a kid like we were talking about before we went on the air, Oscar Piastri in Formula One, who's got discipline of like an 80-year-old man. It's kind of scary that a kid of that age. I mean, there's so many distractions in the world. You almost expect to see him going down the street and having one hand on his iPhone, maybe checking his Instagram or something.
It's interesting you say that. I have 4 kids, so I get a lot of exposure to young people and kind of how they act, and I think what people don't realize is how much mental capacity these kids actually are utilizing, right? Because they're working on multi-channels a lot, and I mean, look, you can have the screen kid who's just looks catatonic. I get that; that's a different story. But if you look at kids that have actually embraced the technology, who are also active, they're learning at an accelerated version of reality. And I think there's a lot of knowledge out there. I mean, geez, you start talking about something as a family, and the kids will go away and they'll do their own research on YouTube, and they'll come back and they'll sound like they're a scholar on the subject.
Yeah,
so that learning curve has kind of reduced, and I think that's why I think if you're dedicated and you want to be specialized nowadays, you can be probably more excellent than anybody was before, because there's so many more tools to help that success.
Yeah, it's amazing. My kids will start rambling off about Cosmos or something, I'm like, where the heck did you get that? Oh, well, just researching it, It's like, it's amazing that, the encyclopedia right there in your hands, that you can find anything in the world. I mean, the technology is amazing. My son just graduated with his master's, and I thought, how do they even know when you're writing a thesis whether you plagiarize it or AI or whatever? I don't even know how they grade that stuff anymore.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
It's a very special achievement to have a kid that's gotten a graduate degree.
Yeah. Pretty cool. It's, proud of him. He took a few years off, but, hey, that's okay. So any of your kids show an interest in racing? Or are you discouraging or encouraging, or just kind of ambivalent and let it happen if it happens?
Well, no, I mean, I think that they all enjoy it. They all like going to the racetrack. I mean, nobody's kicking and screaming going.
Right.
And I don't think that, and that's authentic, right? Like they would say otherwise. And when we're home, we're watching races, I mean, the kids are big IndyCar fans.
Right.
We don't really miss a race, and tune into NASCAR, from time to time together. And they know that the families, they're well aware of the families kind of state in the sport. And I'm fortunate I've been able to compete well into kind of their development.
Right.
And my son Nicholas has been working with the race team for the last 3 summers, and he's really good technically.
Right.
Really enjoys working with his hands and helping the guys out, and he's an exceptionally good athlete. He's been skiing since he was a little boy, and every time he gets in a go-kart, he goes quickly and does things that kind of surprise me.
Right.
And my little guy, Ian, you could drop him off at the go-kart track and he'd be there all weekend by himself, I think.
Right. Just give him some nourishment every once in a while, right?
And he's got some co-conspirators when he comes to my races, and they're off doing all the crazy stuff that I used to do. And
yeah.
It's fun to see that. And the girls, really, I think I have 2 daughters, and they'll come to the racetrack, and man, they hop right behind that Jim Weed sampling booth, and they're handing out the drinks to people, and trying to take surveys of who likes what.
Right. And how great.
You get a full market report from them.
Well, and you got the whole family involved, right? And I mean, and Jim Weed, what a great name. That is so cool. I love that. That's a great product. And I love that they had their slogan, think like an athlete, drink your weeds, make your body believe it can do anything. I love that. Yes, cool.
Yes, well, and it's you're talking about a family, the Pickett's, who have forgotten more in the functional nutrition space than most families will ever know, and they've gotten behind this product in a way that I'm really happy to go out and endorse and support and work in partnership together, because they're the sort of focused energy drink space, with all natural ingredients. It's kind of something that hasn't been quite connected.
Right.
And, their background has been in supporting athletes, elite athletes, and bringing those kind of products out to the mainstream. They did that with Muscle Milk.
Right.
And with great success. And what's fun about it is that, you've got a product that, it's got a great, catchy, provocative name.
Sure.
But it's delicious and it works. It provides a nice rounded boost. But it has none of the crashing. It has none of the jitters.
Right.
It has none of the junk that you've seen in a lot of these more, more widely known brands, but we're coming, and the product is really starting to get some traction.
That's awesome. It's great to kind of grow, help them grow their business as well too, because the exposure that you're giving them is amazing. There's the value in that shouldn't be overlooked.
It isn't, and certainly the fact that it's Jim Weed Winter Circle in transit.
That was kind of cool.
It's the place that everyone wants to end up. So we're pleased about it, and certainly we're doing samplings at all the race events and providing some promotions, but they're rolling out distribution across the country right now, and that's been awesome. A lot of fun to support.
That's awesome. Well, and my one favorite question I'll ask before we go, and this is the one I get to ask everybody, and the more mundane, the better. What's your daily driver?
Oh gosh. Well, it's either a Chevy Suburban,
right, or
it's a Chevy Traverse.
Oh, the Traverse.
Depends which day or what time of day or night it is, but I usually have lots of passengers.
Right. And either one of them works well for that, right?
They do. And the sound systems are great in both. And I don't get in any kind of trouble in them.
Yeah, exactly. And you can still find the apex of the corner in a Traverse or a Suburban, right? So
Yeah. And the Suburban, you're king of the road. And, mine happens to look like an unmarked state trooper car, which has its benefits to motorists you're approaching from time to time.
Exactly. Well, Chris, it was such a pleasure having you on the show. We could do this all day, as we said in the beginning. And talking cars and racing, hard to find anything better to talk about, in my opinion.
Well, Stewart, thanks for everything you guys are doing to promote motorsport and classic cars. We need this kind of energy and enthusiasm, and I'm glad I could come in and spend some time with you talking about some of our favorite subjects together. Me too. Love to. We'll see you down the road somewhere, I'm sure. Everybody, Chris Dyson, thanks again, Chris.
The Classic Auto Mall has more than 1,000 vehicles for consignment in our huge 8-acre climate-controlled showroom. It's a real indoor mall. If you'd like to know all the advantages of buying and selling a car through consignment, the information is available on our website, or you can talk to a classic car specialist who can answer all your questions. It's easy, safe, convenient, and it doesn't matter where you are. We sell worldwide. See our huge selection of classic and collectible vehicles at classicautomall.com.
And we're back with the Classic Auto Mall show from the Classic Auto. That scary there, Steve.
Yeah. Rock and roll.
Classic Auto. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Pat Travers. What a great band. Still doing it. Still out on the road. Yep. Still doing great. And we're going to see, I'm going to have to get my cowboy boots out this weekend. We're going to go see George Strait, Chris Stapleton over at the Lincoln Financial Center.
Yeah.
Every other redneck in Southeast Pennsylvania is going to be there.
Lincoln Financial
Field? Did I say center?
Stadium.
Yeah, the stadium.
Stadium, wow.
Yeah, wow. So we're going to see him. And we found out just last night that Vince Gill is the same night in Reading. It's like, oh man, I really like
Vince Gill by himself or with the Eagles?
By himself.
Oh, yeah. Nice. He's good.
I don't think Santander can handle the Eagles.
Oh, right.
Or tickets would be like 20,000 a piece or something, right?
I missed that tour.
Yeah. So where did we sell cars this past week? You ask? Yeah. Did you ask that?
Where?
Somebody asked that, please.
Where did we sell cars?
Nah, come on. Y'all don't want to know.
I saw one.
This old shirt. Oh, this ain't nothing.
Yeah, right.
How about Brookfield, Connecticut, Bradford, New Hampshire, Staten Island, New York, Dunlap, Illinois, New Tripoli, Pennsylvania, Binghamton, New York, Morrisville, Pennsylvania, Townsend, Delaware, Orland, Pennsylvania, Wilmington, Delaware, Newtown, Pennsylvania, Paramus, is that right? Yeah, you converted. You said something to me about that one time, didn't you?
Yeah.
Birdsboro, Pennsylvania, Warren, Indiana, Quakertown, Pennsylvania, Oil City, Pennsylvania, York, Pennsylvania, twice, Calistoga, California, and Riverview, Florida.
Very nice.
Not a bad week, huh?
10 states. Very nice.
So what a great guest, Chris Dyson.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
Super.
And his dad was equally as good, Rob Dyson, who we had on back in February. Mm-hmm. And just so knowledgeable and just genuine good people. You can just tell and, wants to come back and do the show anytime we want. Because I got enough material for 3 or 4
I missed the boat. I realized that he was talking about height. He's 6'2".
He's 6'2",
but he wants to be 5'7". I'm like,
I
could have been.
I want to be 6'2", so why don't we switch?
I could have been a racer.
It's not so good up here, and he'll say it's not so great down here either.
Yeah, so. It is so interesting because I've been to the Indy 500 numerous times, and you see, I've been near the drivers, and they're so short.
Well, they're like jockeys for.
It's true. I sat in Al Holbert's Can-Am car in 1981, and I was 16 years old, and I barely fit.
Right.
Those guys are skinny.
Yeah, they were jockeys. Yeah. If I lost, 30, 40, 50. I'd be good and skinny too. So new arrivals this week. How about the 1974 Chevrolet Camaro Type LT Z28? Last year for the Z28. For 2 years.
Right.
They didn't make them in 75. Right. They didn't make them in 76.
Oh, is that right?
And they made them in 77.
Okay.
77, they didn't have the bulging hood scoop. It was just the painted on, looked like a hood scoop. But my buddy had one. It was a 4-speed in chocolate brown. And it had like a 373 rear end. It would go from 0 to 60 and quick like crazy. But 80 was just like... Right. You hearing that fan?
Picking it, yep.
Well, how did that happen?
That is one of your biggest fans, There
it is, on the floor. But your biggest fan's on the floor.
Yeah. So how about the Camaro Type LT Z28 1974? Medium red metallic over saddle, sporty and luxurious, rebuilt 350 cubic inch V8, Tremec 5-speed manual. So that's kind of a, obviously you wouldn't get a 5-speed manual in 1974. Right. I don't know. Little feedback.
I don't know. All I did was,
there were 4-speed.
The LT was new to me. I didn't know there was an LT model, so that was interesting.
And the Hotchkiss front suspension. Oh, this has a 373 posi axle too, 10 bolt. So, how about the 2013 Chevrolet Camaro ZL1 Hennessy 750 convertible?
Sure. Victory
red over black. 7,436 actual miles. 708 6.2 liter V8 horsepower.
Something like
crazy.
That's you can only say one thing about that one.
We got a winner.
That's a lot of horses.
Yeah, it's got a TR60 66-speed manual, top-down muscle car. This thing is a beast. We've gotten some cars in lately that they'll go. We
got some tweaked Camaros.
We just got the Camaro in yesterday. Did you see the Roadster Camaro with the tonneau cover?
No,
black,
I haven't seen that.
Black, triple black.
I'll see it later.
Cool.
I'm sure I'll see it later.
How about, you better. How about the 1965 Pontiac GTO hardtop? Cameo white over dark blue, frame off restored, garage cap, but it's got a Jasper 455 cubic inch V8.
Why not?
So why not? On them Jasper NASCAR motors, probably.
I see, Jasper.
Yeah, a Doug Nash manual transmission's got the PHS documentation. Great car, great body style.
Pontiac Historical Society, is that right?
That's correct. That's correct. It tells you everything the car was born with. Doesn't tell you what it has now. Tells you what it was born with.
In the write-up, I said, is a massaged goat better than a tweaked pony?
Your epiduris is showing, Steve.
That's up to you. That's up to you.
It's interesting on PHS documentation and Marty reports and all that is people think if they have these, then the car has everything that was on that sheet.
Right.
And that's not the case. It just tells you what it was built with. So you know that it came with 3 deuces instead of a single 4-barrel, or it came with a manual transmission, not an automatic, or, all the different options that came on it. And you'll know that to be true. And options can be just as important to value. Forget the engine and the transmission, the rear end all being numbers matching. That's hugely important.
Right.
But factory air conditioning is a huge bump. It's 10 or 15% difference in price. 5-speed manual transmission, same thing, 10 or 15% different in price, higher price. And so, or just a special type of option that they had, or a special color. So
factory 8-track player.
Factory phonograph.
Ooh, yes.
Too, which are really cool. They had in the 50s on the Mopars.
Yeah.
And others as well, too. But, it's interesting that some of these things are important. So, make a long story even longer, PHS documentation or a Marty report is great to have for the car, but don't fall into the trap of thinking, because it says it's on there, it means that's what's in the car. Doesn't necessarily mean one and the same. So, I'll get off my soapbox now. How about that? How about the 1920?
No, it's not.
1970 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme Indy pace car. A little typo there, a little fat finger.
I see that.
Porcelain white over black, one of about 60 built. Numbers matching 350 cubic inch L74 4-barrel V8. Correct turbo hydromatic 353-speed automatic transmission. It's got the original order invoice. How cool is that?
Yep.
From 1970 or 20. And this thing is nicely restored as well. The 1956 Nash Metropolitan Series 3 hardtop, new arrival, 50,238 actual miles, 1,197 cc inline 4 with a 3-speed manual. Mid-century modern bliss. You write that?
I did not write that.
Okay.
Is that the Lois Lane special?
Yeah. Small car, big fun.
Yeah.
They all sell here. They all sell them.
They all sell.
They do.
I know they do.
People love them.
They love those. Metropolitans are very, very popular. And last but not least, the 1957 Chang Jiang 750 M1M motorcycle, OD green over black, garage kept, 746cc V-twin, 4-speed manual, rarely seen in the USA. This looks like a military motorcycle.
It does.
Dark olive green.
That's exactly right.
And it's a Chang Jiang.
It's a sidecar.
With a sidecar, yeah. So
I had no idea. I'm learning a lot by writing these things up.
You absolutely are. So thanks to all of our new subscribers on YouTube.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Great.
We are just gaining.
Welcome in.
Yeah, welcome in. We are gaining like it's just no tomorrow.
Get on board. It's fun.
In the less than 24 hours, we've gained 700 new subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
That's just hard to believe.
We're on fire.
We are on fire. So if you're interested in becoming a sponsor and want to give us money, then the proof's in the
contact the producer.
We're getting the clicks, baby.
We're getting the clicks. So call Steve and if you
podcast at classicautomall.com
or podcast at classicautomall.com, you can certainly reach us there. When we return, we'll continue. No, right? Yeah.
Yep, that's right. You're right.
Let me see if I can mess that up anymore. When we return, we'll have our special guest, Keith Martin, who's been with us every week for the past 9 weeks now. So and he gives us insight into his blog that he writes, and we kind of bring it to life. So we'll be back in a few minutes with Keith Martin from Sports Car Market Magazine. We'll see you then.
Whether you want to buy or sell a classic, collectible, or special interest vehicle, you need to visit the Classic Auto Mall website for more information. If you're looking to buy, you can easily search our inventory of more than 1,000 vehicles on the web at classicautomall.com.
And welcome back to the show number 192, as mentioned, with our weekly segment with our friend Keith Martin from Sports Car Market Magazine. Good morning, Keith.
Good morning, Stewart.
How are you this morning?
I am ready to rock and roll.
I am ready to. Your blog last week with the video and the extra pictures was great. Or this week, excuse me.
You liked it.
Yeah, and I love your opening line. Until this weekend, I was unaware that Maserati had built a commercial grade spin dryer in 1956. I mean, who knew? Right. That is crazy. It's so funny, like Lamborghini tractors and Porsche tractors, but Maserati and a commercial grade spin dryer.
Right, exactly.
I love that. So SCMer, if those who don't know what that means, it's the Sports Car Market readers, alumni. I don't know. Are they team members? What do we call them?
Do you call them dealers and stealers?
Yeah. Well, not to their face. So he's got a unbelievable Maserati replica 350S that looks like and sounds like the coolest car you've ever seen or heard.
Well, it's it's got a 5-liter 4-cam V8, and it probably weighs nothing.
Right. And he decided to take you for a ride this past weekend, I guess, and you did a little filming of that, which is on. If you go to the website, sportscarmarket.com, you can look at Keith's blog and catch the video and some of the pictures of the car. Really, it looked like a lot of fun.
Well, it was a dream come true. You know, I had some people comment that a lot of people talk about this kind of thing, but very few people actually do it.
Right. I think that's so true. Like,
and he's got that car dialed now where on a nice day, he can just jump into it and drive for half an hour.
Yeah. And that's so important because so many of cars that we want to get in on a Saturday, there's some kind of stumbling block. The battery's dead or it's out of gas or this, that, or the other. And you go, oh, well, we'll do it next. And we can't keep putting stuff off. You and I are not getting any younger.
Well, I understand.
So we cannot say, oh, we'll do that next week or the month later or 2 months later because, we got to get on it. We got too many things on our list to get done.
That's exactly right, Stuart.
I love that you said, just to reaffirm who was in charge, a 6-inch flame shot out from the hood louver when you started.
That was, I said, Chris, does it always do that? And he goes, well, yeah.
Just so nonchalant, right? Yeah, well, it's just one of those things. One of the things that happen. I had a friend of mine in an airplane, and we would always take off. We can only go to certain airports, and I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Well, sometimes the right engine has a tendency not to keep running." So, good to know.
Well, the problem with that, with an airplane like that, I like to think about things on what their natural state is.
Right.
Like for a boat, its natural state is at the bottom of the ocean. Go back. If a car you pull over to the side of the road.
Right.
With an airplane's natural state It's a long way down.
Yeah, it's a long way down. I think I'd like it better if they flew closer to the ground. I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't do well for the noise regulations and all that. So
I'm just curious about your Lotus Europa because, I know you're secretly pitching me on that car.
I'm really mind melding to you, Keith, right now. The whole reason we're having you on is because we want you to buy that Europa. Once you buy it, we're going to be like, well, sure.
You've got a buy here, pay here program.
We do. We have
$1,000 down and $1,000 a week.
Absolutely, for you, anything. We and then we're going to add the undercoating, and we're going to add the extended warranty, and we're going to add.
What about the fabric protection?
The Scotch Guard, right? Because you got to have you don't want the non-Scotch Guard because that stuff's inferior. You want the good stuff, right?
I ran the Ferrari dealership here for a while,
right.
and the amount that we would charge for all of those things was a lot.
Yeah, it'll bring a tear to your eye.
As salesmen, we got a bigger commission
right.
on those things by far than on the car.
Well, and nowadays, I imagine that a new car dealer, even Ferraris, I mean, it's, those guys are all dressed pretty nice when you walk into a Ferrari dealership. The sales guys even have, an Armani suit on, if that's even still, I don't know, is that even still a thing? Armani suit. That was the reference point if you were, had the high dollar suit. But those guys look like they're doing okay.
They're doing okay. Ferrari, when I worked there in the 80s, it was really a boutique manufacturer, and there were only a certain number of cars you could get each year, and each dealer had his own region. And if you sold a car to somebody outside your region, they would take a car out of your allotment.
Right. And, it's funny how the dealership model has changed so much over the years. It used to be you sold within your county. If you were a Chevy dealer or a Ford dealer or whatever, you sold within the county that you were in. And now the way we sell cars is completely different, yet the laws are still kind of based on that old model.
Yeah. I think that one of the old-time dealers here in town said the big change for him in the past 20 years is that the cars used to stay local.
Yeah. Yep.
But because of the internet and the way the world has evolved, when a car goes now, he won't have the chance to sell it 2 or 3 more times. Exactly.
Well, and the other thing, you remember when people started doing this, when this became more and more prevalent back in the early 2000s, when people were buying across state lines, that a lot of the dealerships were like, well, we're not going to warranty your car if you didn't buy it here. If you bought this down in Virginia and you live in Maryland, then you're going to have to figure out something else because we're not going to service it if you live in Maryland and bought it somewhere else. And of course, that's changed now. I mean, it's not even a thing anymore.
Don't you think it's interesting? I think we can learn more about cars over the internet before we buy them than ever before.
Right.
Think how it used to be Auto Shopper.
Yeah.
Was with one when we got one black and white picture and we were so excited.
Exactly. And God, when you went to the auto show, man, you were really, I mean, it was, and if you go back 50 years, I mean, you remember when I don't remember this, but like in 1963 when the Corvette Stingray came out, they had the paper on the windows and they unveiled it and people literally gasped when they saw, it was like they were seeing a spaceship or something. I mean, now, these auto shows are struggling so much because everybody's already seen them on the internet.
That's right. Well, the biggest thing I remember about going to the auto shows is how fast a journalist could get the official press kit onto eBay.
Right. Yeah, and sell it for $500 or whatever, right?
Exactly right.
Yeah, I remember the new car show would come to town, and it was pretty exciting because you hadn't seen any of the new models, and especially when they were in a significant model change. And then, of course, the World of Wheels would come to town as well, too, with the Rat Fink and all those goofy things as well. So It was fun to be a kid in the 60s and see all that stuff happening, and it still happens today. I don't know. It's different for whatever reason.
It's just different. Because I believe that social media is the direct mail of this era.
Sure. Yeah. You're not doing, a lot of postcard mailers. I mean, I still get them. I still get postcard mailers from companies that send you stuff. And I don't know how effective it is. It's like the emails you get, there's certain auction houses, we won't be specific, but you get an email like every 13 minutes. And you don't unsubscribe because at some point in time there's going to be a morsel of something that you would have missed had you not gotten their email. But most of the time it's just delete.
Right. I agree 100%.
Yeah. So your ride in the Maserati was that? I mean, That's a pretty cool car. And even though it's a replica, it was done properly, right?
It was done in Argentina by a specialist there. Really, Chris and I, the owner, we talked a lot about what it must have been like to drive something like that, a monster like that, in the Mille Miglia.
Yeah, with skinny tires.
From day into night, into day again, on open roads. They didn't close the roads for the race.
Right, farm animals coming out, and
I mean it was just a different era, and I like to go back. I like to be in his car because it takes me back in time.
Right. Well, and it's one of those experiences that not many people will get to ride in either a real one or a replica. I mean, it's just not something that's going to, come into your world very often. And you just can't say no to something like that because you get to experience what it was like. And, the simpler times and all that, we feel like that maybe we're back in the old days, and maybe they're right and maybe they're wrong. Maybe the good old days weren't that good at all.
They were just what they were, Stewart. In other words, they were all we had to compare them to.
Right. Exactly. Not much
when you're driving in a 1965 56 car, you're not thinking about, what would this car be like in a 62?
Right. Right. Just a used car, right?
Yeah, you're just driving it, and the main thing about driving that car is it's just so outrageous to be in city traffic. Like you're looking around, there's a Hyundai and a Kia and a Toyota and a Honda and a Maserati replica.
Well, they must think that you are from aliens when they see you driving in that car, right?
I don't know.
Y'all had the little pith helmets on too, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, well, that was the helmet I wore when I drove in the 91 Mille Miglia.
Right, that's right. We had talked about that. I had forgotten about that.
That's somehow through all my moves and all the different things, I've managed to hang on to those two helmets. Well, you can actually buy a replica of those helmets, a direct replica.
Wow, that's interesting to know.
Whatever reason, yeah.
Well, if you ever decide to sell it, I'm your memorabilia guy. So
okay, I've got a Europa I'd trade for.
We'll talk about that in the future if it hadn't sold, because we'll get the price right for you. So everybody, Keith Martin joining us from Sports Car Market Magazine. Be listening to the promo that's afterwards. It tells you about the special offer he's going to make for you. And we'll catch you next week on the Classic Auto Mall Show. We'll see you then.
Here's a special offer from Sports Car Market Magazine. Get a 6-month subscription for just $19.95 by going to sportscarmarket.com/test drive and the number 6. That's sportscarmarket.com/test drive 6. If you're a buyer, a seller, or just general classic car enthusiast, publisher Keith Martin says,
we've been around almost 40 years. It's the Wall Street Journal of the collector car world.
Activate your 6-month trial of Sports Car Market Magazine by going to sportscarmarket.com/test drive 6. Offers for a limited time. Be in the know with Sports Car Market.
The Classic Auto Mall Show with their host, Stewart Howden. Executive producer, Steve Sethier. Produced and engineered by yours truly, J.R. Russ. Video editor, Randy Lammy. Available on ClassicAutomall.com, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Music courtesy of the Pat Travers Band. For tour dates, contact, and stuff, visit PatTravers.com. Produced by Car Smarts Media. Copyright all rights reserved.